Welcome to Naka Tales. Today, we're diving into some truly wild stories of revenge, some borderline nuclear. Brace yourself, and don't forget to subscribe because these tales get heavy fast. I'm an athletic gay guy, born and raised in Texas. Being gay there about 10 years ago? Let's just say it wasn't exactly accepted. Freshman year, I was on the basketball team. Not great, just average. The team took up a class period, and some days we studied instead of practiced. One kid on my team constantly gave me flack for being gay, calling me the F word, queer, all the usual slurs. I was pretty chill, so I took the insults with a shrug, but it stung. Even though I wasn't the star player, I owned my identity. People who knew me called me the F word with pride. I never let the insults get to me, but the constant disrespect toward me, my friends, even teachers, started wearing me down. This kid harassed my friends, picked on boys, catcalled girls, and made lewd comments non-stop. He was that type who'd fake a yes sir to a teacher but clearly had no respect. A little birdie told me his dad died 3 years before and his mom was an alcoholic. Knowing that didn't make me cut him slack, I held on to it until the right moment. I liked to shove people around sometimes, but he never touched me because I was popular and could match him physically. Still, he targeted my friends. So I started training for the fight I knew was coming, working the bags, practicing footwork, all that good stuff. After 3 months, I felt ready. One day, he cornered me in the bathroom with some buddies. I don't remember all the details, but I threw some hard truths at him, poking fun at his daddy issues since his dad died. I asked why he was so obsessed with gay sex, whether he wanted to try it, or if that was the last lesson from his dad. Not my best lines, but it got him mad, and that was the point. He charged at me in the narrow bathroom. My back was against the wall, but he was moving too fast. I dodged, and he smashed into the wall harmlessly, well, for me. Then I landed a one-punch knockout to his jaw. This kid had never been in a real fight. When I flipped him off and the 3 buddies looked at me, they lost their nerve. Next, I kicked him 4 times in the face while he was down, my shoes soaked with his blood. Then I kicked him in the balls multiple times, spat on the back of his head, and walked away. I never spoke to him again or cared about how he was doing. But his face? Definitely not the same one he was born with. Word of the fight spread. I got suspended but also gained a reputation. Don't mess with the F word. Nobody dared to after that. Oh man, kicking an unconscious guy in the face? Brutal. But hey, this is nuclear revenge. Our next story comes from Ptahs. They shared about drinking with their dad who has 3 daughters and 1 son. One day, their oldest sister, just 12, called their dad in tears, revealing she'd been molested by her stepdad. She only wanted someone to believe her since her mom didn't. The dad was ready to beat the stepdad's ass, but the sister stopped him. She didn't want anyone going to jail. So, the dad reached out to old gang friends and told them everything. The stepdad got beaten so badly he barely recovered. The stepdad and mom separated, and the dad got him fired too. He tracked the guy across cities, sending more beatings. Years later, the abuser is wheelchair-bound, barely able to care for himself. Dad's still not satisfied. If it were up to him, the guy would be dead. No one hurts his kids. That one made me feel weird. Here I am hyped about a story where someone's literally beaten to near death. But that's the rawness of nuclear revenge. Next up, from Dark 1859, this one is about an HOA showdown just before 2000. Richard lived in a retiree community run by a tyrannical HOA board. They favored their clique and targeted others, including Richard. For nearly 10 years, Richard had a mailbox near his driveway and hedges bordering his house. Board members began parking in front of his mailbox, blocking his driveway. Richard tried talking, then started parking to block the mailboxes in retaliation. The board responded by towing his car and invoicing him. Richard wasn't into manicured lawns, so the HOA sent landscapers to trim his hedges and lawn, and build him. He refused access and the invoices kept coming. Eventually, the board sent landscapers when he wasn't home and still billed him. Richard finally killed his lawn and hedges to stop it, but the HOA sued for unpaid fees and foreclosed on his house. He had to move to California. Richard, furious, returned with weapons, rifle and semi-automatic handguns. At an HOA board meeting, he opened fire, killing 2 board members, wounding others, and fighting another who tried to disarm him. When asked why, he said, "I was getting even." Sentenced to death, he passed away on death row. The HOA disbanded for a while but later reformed with caution. This one is wild. The board screwed Richard over, no doubt, but shooting up a meeting? That's not revenge, that's murder. Now from Atlas Black, a long but insane story. He got framed and fired from a job at a fancy restaurant, accidentally causing a chain reaction. Several managers fired or transferred, the general manager fired and divorced, one manager arrested by the FBI, and some workers deported. He worked there for 3.5 years, starting as a server but learning every role: carry out, hosting, bartending, banquets, catering, deliveries. Eventually, he unofficially supervised carry out and catering. He negotiated a raise for the extra responsibility and managed schedules based on workers' needs. Life in Chicago was tough: high taxes, tight budgets. But he was simple: video games and his pet kept him content. He even had a girlfriend, so expenses rose, but his job supported it. New management came in, led by Harvey, who had a sketchy past with domestic abuse charges. A respected manager quit, warning the team about harassment and the place's downfall. Harvey replaced almost all managers with his own crew, except for the kitchen manager Frito, who was a chameleon, adapting to whoever was in charge. Without direct oversight, Atlas's department ran smoothly, but Frito often clashed with him over hours and tips. Frito believed they should live off tips, ignoring the reality of mostly carry-out orders with little tipping. The team relied on Atlas to protect their interests. In a meeting with Harvey, Frito, and the team, workers voiced concerns about our cuts and management changes. They suggested Atlas become the official manager since he'd been effectively leading for months. That's where we leave it, but trust me, the fallout is even crazier. Don't forget to subscribe. These stories aren't just about petty revenge, they're full-on nuclear payback. Welcome to Narca Tales. So, picture this: I'm working at this restaurant, right? The deal was simple: at least 2 people had to be closing every night. It wasn't just a preference, it was a promise management made to us. 2 closers to handle clean-up properly. Sounds fair, yeah? But almost immediately, like, within a week, they started sending everyone home early except for one poor soul every night. The promise? Totally broken. One night, right after this massive catering event, the kitchen looked like a tornado hit it. There was cleanup everywhere. Way too much for one person to handle. I was scheduled as the closer that night, and when Frito, yeah, that guy, tried to send everyone but me home, I called him out. Straight up told him he was breaking the promise he made during the meeting. No sugarcoating. He looked me dead in the eye and told me to shut up about it. If I kept complaining, he could easily find someone else to work my shifts. That was the moment I realized this was a full-on assassination attempt on my job. So, I backed off, grabbed a mop, and started cleaning alone. I ended up staying way past my shift, meaning overtime. But guess what? I got a write-up for working overtime without manager approval. When I refused to sign it and tried explaining the situation, HR, thankfully not one of Harvey's cronies, let me leave without signing. Fast forward to the day I got fired. Here's the deal: I always came in an hour early to get free soup and bread for lunch. Food's expensive in Chicago, and the job let us eat as much free soup and bread as we wanted. Win-win, right? But on this particular day, a line cook told me there was a cancelled dish that Frito had already comped, meaning it was free to take. Just my luck, it was my favorite appetizer. I grabbed it happily. Not long after, Harvey and Frito approached me. They asked if I had put in a ticket for that food. I told them exactly what the line cook said: it was cancelled, already comped, and free to take. Frito looked dumbfounded. Harvey, with zero chill, said, "I think you know that's theft." Then, without even waiting for me to finish my food, he told me to pack up and go. that was my last meal there. I tried explaining, even offered to take them back to the kitchen to clear things up. But by the time we got there, the line cook had already left for the day. No way to prove anything. So, I gathered my things, said my goodbyes, and left, feeling absolutely betrayed. Before heading out, I stopped by the accounting office to grab any tips I was owed. Something inside told me to set my phone to record, and yeah, I shoved it into my pocket with the camera rolling. What I caught: Harvey and Frito talking behind closed doors, admitting everything, that they'd been trying to get rid of me since that department meeting. They hushed up when I knocked, but I had the proof. Despite the anger boiling inside me, I didn't burn any bridges. I shook their hands, thanked them for the opportunity, and left, phone still recording the front of the restaurant with the name and logo. Because if I was accused of theft, I wanted to have something to back myself up with for future job interviews. And guess what? That recording came in clutch. On the train ride home, I posted on local Facebook groups about being fired and needing a job ASAP. By the time I got off the train, I'd set up an interview for later that day. 5 minutes into the interview, they offered me the job, but after discussing the details, it wasn't quite right. So I kept looking. I found a better job, auditing for a logistics company, better pay, and no customer drama. Perfect. During the interview, the manager mentioned he'd already called my old workplace and talked to Harvey, who had told him I was fired for theft. The new manager was skeptical, so he let me pull out my phone and play the recording. Hearing Harvey and Frito admit their plan live? That sealed the deal. The manager, Dean, hired me on the spot and asked me to send him the recording. I thought that was the end of it. But no. About 7 months later, HR sent out a welcome email introducing new hires, including a guy named Thomas. Thomas was a former co-worker from the restaurant's host stand, laid off because the company was under investigation. Turns out, corporate had received that recording I made, the one filmed in my pocket. That was enough to trigger an internal investigation. Thomas told me I had tons of emails from corporate asking about my firing, but I never checked. Before corporate sent in their investigator, Audrey, Harvey and Frito tried to spin a story to my old department, offering a pay raise if they claimed I was incompetent. But when Audrey showed up, several employees quit on the spot and exposed Harvey and Frito's lies. Strike 1, the staff revolt. Strike 2, Audrey played my recording for Harvey and Frito. They denied everything, but the voices were unmistakable, including the handshake and friendly goodbye I caught on tape. Strike 3, corporate split the evil duo. Frito got moved to another restaurant owned by the same company and demoted, which triggered a nasty Facebook fight between the two on the company's page. Their passive-aggressive insults got flagged by Audrey. Then came the big one. Audrey started interviewing female waitstaff and bartenders. Multiple women confirmed Harvey had hit on them, offering to be their sugar daddy in exchange for nudes or after-hours fun. Harvey was fired. But it gets worse. Audrey, the corporate auditor, was also the former regional manager who had hired Harvey's wife as a GM elsewhere. She called Harvey's wife and spilled everything. They divorced after Harvey tried cheating again, even after she'd given him a second chance post-abuse. Meanwhile, the line cook who gave me the food? During his interview with Audrey, he accidentally revealed he was an illegal immigrant. Audrey had his ID and social security card on file, but Frito was running a black market for fake IDs and social security cards for illegal workers. This had been going on for years. FBI got involved. Frito got arrested and fingered 14 people who'd bought fake documents, including the line cook who gave me that free meal. Thomas explained it all started with my firing, but I never sent that recording to corporate. It was Dean, the new manager who hired me, who shared it with his wife, a lawyer. She thought it was enough to get me a case against my old employer. But more than that, it triggered a massive chain reaction. Sexual harassment investigations. Managers cheating on their wives with people they supervised. Mass layoffs. FBI investigations into fake ID rings. At least half a dozen deportations. This wasn't just revenge, this was nuclear karma. I didn't even have to lift a finger to pursue it. The fallout was huge. and the crater it left behind was massive. If you enjoyed this wild ride, smash that subscribe button because I drop fresh Reddit stories every day. And remember, sometimes, karma hits harder than any revenge plan ever could. End of story.